All right, so me being a painter, I know through the years I've had so many people ask me, hey, can you just touch that up, make it look better? And that is something that we're gonna be doing here in this video. So a normal job that comes into the shop usually gets body work, primed, and painted. This is gonna be something that we're gonna be doing differently on this one. So we got the PDR guy in the shop, my man Brad, you know him. He's gonna be working on this vehicle with me because the owner does not wanna paint it. So we're gonna go about this repair completely different than we normally would. And it does have a scratch in it. So a lot of times with PDR work, as soon as they see a scratch, they don't get involved in it because that panel has to be painted. So this one we're gonna do a little different. We're gonna try to get that PDR out. It does have a scratch in it. This is a brand new vehicle and something hit it while it was driving down the road, and the customer wants to get this one done and repaired, but try not to paint it. If we have to, we'll go about that in the second option. But the first option we're gonna do is PDR that and try to touch it up, buff it out, and get this thing looking back good. So I'll take you guys over. We'll show you what we're doing here in this video. And I think this one will be pretty good for a lot of people out there that are in the business, because we always hear that, being that we're in the auto body business. You see somebody, hey, can you just do this? Can you just touch this up? Can you just touch that up? We're gonna try that out on this one and see how nice of an outcome we can get. All right, so this here is the vehicle, and this isn't a special section that we have in the shop when we wanna have things out of the way. So this is a brand new GLE AMG 63. So this is a really nice vehicle, and they do not wanna paint it because they wanna have the factory paint on the vehicle. And I can't agree with that more. Even though I'm a painter, I like to have the original paint on a vehicle. So right in here, there is a crease. See right there, that scratch? And it's actually dented. So being that it has those little nicks in it, a lot of times PDR guys would say, hey, there's no sense of doing this because we have chip paint, you're gonna have to paint it regardless. But me being a painter, I think we might be able to do a little bit of a smart repair on this one, being it is a solid color. So this is not a metallic. And I think where it's at, we can do something to get this job fixed up without having to paint it, and that way the customer is happy. So what we're gonna do here today is get my man Brad. You guys know how he is and what he does. He's really, really good at the PDR. And once we get his light in here, you'll be able to see more of the damage, and that way we can get this handled up and see if the first way of doing this will fix it and we don't have to go our normal route by doing body work, primer, and then painting it. So let's let him get here, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing started. All right, we got the man here. He's gonna be checking it out now. What do you think? We got a good outcome, you think, maybe?
I hope so.
All right, so we were talking, and Brad was letting me know that when you're doing a crease, you wanna have your light on the top or the bottom. That way you can look down on it. So this is in a location that's not ideal, but that's good that we got the best man in town on it. So my man Brad, he's gonna get it knocked out, and now you can see it. You guys see the crease? It's a decent little crease. The key to this PDR work, and I told you guys last time, the main thing that they rely on is these light boards to see it. Because if you notice, when you're looking at this, you can actually see the orange peel in the paint. So it's cool to look at the paint with the light. You actually can see so much more peel, so much more if there was an imperfection in it. And we've done some little tests with it back when he was here in the shop working with us when we were doing all them hail jobs. So it's cool to me. You guys know I've always been a big fan of the PDR. There's a board that protects the glass. That way he can get his rods in there. And then he's got the bag. He's gonna open that up a little bit to get access inside that door. So you can see now that the panel is moving. All right, check it out, guys. There is no more crease at all. All you're seeing now is the gouge from the actual damage. So my man Brad, I told you, I've been doing this a long time and I've seen a lot of PDR guys, but I've never seen one be able to get it out as nice as my man does. So now it's up to me to see if we can actually do what we need to do here. And I told you guys, the biggest thing is gonna be having that paint adhere. So we've got to clean it off good. We've got to scuff it. We've got to get that gray down in that bottom of that scratch. And then we have to build it up with the clear coat, let it dry, and then be able to shave it down almost like a run and then buff it out. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing out of here and start that process. All right, first thing we're going to do is hit this with a little bit of lacquer thinner to get off that color, because I don't think that color that was on it was the right color of it. So you guys now can see the gouge come out. You've got that white spot. Looks like they must have sealed this car with a white sealer, but you can see that the dent is gone now. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean this, we're gonna scuff it up, and then we're gonna try to lay the gray down in that hole, and then we'll build it up with the clear, let it dry, and then try to file it off. And I'm hoping that by the end of this, we'll have exactly what we're looking for out of it. So all right, so what we want to do now is we want to get the gray just down into the lower part of that scratch. We don't want to get it all over the place. So we're going to touch this up just down in the scratch, and then we'll come back with our clear. Color definitely looks different. Hopefully it's going to look better when it dries. But there's no real specific scientific way of doing this. Just get it down in that scratch, and then we'll put our clear on. The clear is what's got to dry really good. So we'll turn this thing around and we'll get it in the sun, and then we'll hopefully be able to knock this out in the same day. We'll use a fast hardener on it. That way we can get this in and out. So you can see that color definitely looks different while it's wet, and hopefully it's going to dry up a lot better than that. It looks like it's starting to change now. That's a lot to do with this water base. It doesn't look like solvent does. When solvent is in the can, it looks like the right color. This is always a different color until it dries, and then it starts to look like the actual color. You guys can see it's starting to fade away and almost look exactly like it. So there's a spot here where we got to add a little more in. And once it's gray, then we'll know we're good to go. All right, so the base is dry. We're gonna go ahead now and clear it up with the brush. You guys see here we use the pinstripe brush. When I was doing the scratch, I just want to get that inside the actual scratch the best I can. And then this, I want to go over the top of it and actually let it layer into the outside of the paint job. That way we can try to file it down like we would do a normal run or a dirt dip. So we've got it mixed up here. We used a faster product, and we're gonna just go ahead and brush it now on it and try to get it just in that line, but over the top of it. That way it seals it off. And it's gonna look weird because we've sanded around it now, so we've got to polish up the area back around the actual scratch. but we want to make sure we're going to have adhesion, because then this won't work at all. So we'll put a little more on here, and then we're going to turn this thing around in the sun, let it dry up good, and hopefully be able to block it out later and get this thing looking nice. All right, so it's pretty dry. We're gonna go ahead and start sanding it down. That way we can see what we've got there. Sometimes you might have to do it twice to fill in, because if it's a deep gouge, you're not using a filler and you don't know how thick that OEM paint is on there, so you might have to do it in a couple of stages. So we're gonna go ahead now and start blocking it down. You guys see here, we've got our cart outside. There's no sense of bringing this thing inside here, but you want to make sure that you start out with a block, because you're trying to get just in the area where you've touched up. So if you want, you could even tape around here. That way you don't hit the adjacent area around the damage, and block it out. So we're going to go ahead now and we'll just run over this lightly just to see what we've got here so far. And you guys see it, it's starting to sand. So I think I'm going to use a little bit of water with this just to help cut it. That way we can knock it down and keep it flat. This is a very hard rubber from Kovacs. In the kit I showed you guys a while back in one of the videos. So we've got about 800 on here. We're going to start out with that wet, knock it down, and then we'll keep wiping it to see how we are, because we can almost use this as a guide coat. We got to be careful right here, because there is a body line, so we don't want to burn that edge. So we got to definitely watch out right here in this section not to burn that edge. I'm just going to hit this with now with the 800, knock it down, see what we've got, see how good it's sticking, and that way we'll know how we're going to do with this. So far so good. And I'm thinking I'm going to actually put a little tape here, just so that I don't keep running over the edge, because it just got into that body line. So let's just take a precaution, put a little tape on it. That way we have a little bit more chance of not burning it. So you can see it there. You see that little bit of indent? We're going to keep blocking and try to get that down flat before we try to refine it. And then we'll look at it and see if do we need to put more clear on there to fill that in. It almost looks like it's settled down a little bit into that deep gouge, because this was a pretty deep gouge in this thing. So we'll block it a little more and see what we've got. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and try out this here block. This one is gonna give you a bigger area, which will hide some of this texture that we're removing, because these vehicles do have a texture in them. So you don't want to sand in that one spot too long. You want to try to fade it now like this into this valley and lose some of that flattening that we're doing, because even though we're staying above on this, we are getting around it a little bit. So if you see there, we almost have it completely out. We're going to go ahead and sand it a little bit more and see how we can get it. And now we're going to go ahead and refine it with the 2000 grit now. That way we can polish it up, and I will bring it inside. That way you guys can see it better. I'm just doing it in here now. This is where the vehicle is. And once we get it finished up, we'll bring it to wherever we need to. That way you guys can see the full outcome on this one. So we're just gonna go ahead now and wet it up. Give it a little bit more with the 2000. I mean, I'm gonna use my hand on this now because I'm just trying to finesse it in. I don't wanna have too much of a rigid block because I'm trying to work in that flat area to the texture and just try to hide it. So this happens to be in a good spot because you can hide it down low like this and just blend it in by taking it and bringing it out a little bit bigger, like I've told you guys in one of the other videos, and that way you can blend it in. So I think that's gonna do it. We'll try to polish it up now. All right, we've got it compounded out and you can't even see it at all. So we're gonna go ahead now and hit it with our glaze. And this really worked out well for not painting it, not doing body work, not doing primer, and not having to do any paint work on this vehicle. Look at the area there where the dent was. You can see that there's no visible sign of any crease anymore. We've got our color buffed out and in the area of just where that scratch was. So that's why you guys seen me scuff it and scuff around the area a little bit. That way that clear is gonna stick in there just like it would do if you were to paint this. So now we've got that area there buffed up, looking good. And I don't know how good you guys can see it, but you remember in the beginning we had a pretty big crease. And I'll show you right now what we had in the beginning and then what we've got now. And I'm very, very happy with the outcome. I'm sure that this customer is going to be happy, especially knowing we didn't have to paint this vehicle and now it's got all the OEM paint on it and everything looks beautiful. So sometimes that's definitely a way of doing a job, but this is an option, especially on solid colors. And I'll tell you what works even better is a single stage. So if you can get your hands on some of the old single stage paint, that really works well on touching up stuff like this and being able to buff it out, because you're not putting the clear over the base. It's all together as one. So that way, once you put it in there, you don't have to hope that the edge is gonna not get sanded, because sometimes you'll see where that base coat gets broken through a little bit, whereas this single stage, it'll go in there and you won't have anything because you do not have 2 layers of paint. You just have that single stage in it. So check it out. We'll maybe bring it inside. I'll show you it one more time, but I wouldn't want to have painted this thing either. And sometimes these grays can be tricky on the end of the blends. They like to halo and change colors. Even though they're not a metallic, they will pick up the blend, and you do have to do some tricks when you're fading them out. But this is a beautiful truck for sure. So I'm real happy with the outcome. Let me know what you guys think. We'll pull it inside. We'll show it to you one more time all finished up, and let me know what you guys think of it. All right, so we've got it in here and you guys can see that it looks phenomenal. Check it out. No dent. It's touched up, the color looks good, and this thing sounds like a beast. So this is a V8 twin turbo. I think it's like 600 and something horsepower all-wheel drive. So definitely a beautiful vehicle. I think the customer is gonna love that. I know I'm very happy with it, and if not, they could always paint it, but I don't see a reason to paint it. I think it looks phenomenal. The dent's gone, the scratch is gone, and I don't think we could have got a better outcome for what we did with it. So if the customer wants you to do something and you think you might be able to do it, give it a whirl and see what happens, because you're in the body shop. You can always paint it. You can filler, pull it out, put some primer on it and get it painted. But to me, I'm willing to try these things and I think they're gonna be very happy with it. So just wanted to show you this one. I thought it was something cool that we didn't have to break out the spray gun. We didn't have to do any filler work. We didn't have to do any primer, and we didn't even have to bring it in the spray booth to get a nice repair. And I think we're gonna be successful with the customer loving it. So I hope you guys like this one. We'll see you guys on the next one.